Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first part of Inside William & Mary's School of Marine Science here at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. Today, we'll be talking about charting your course in marine science from graduate school to career. I'm very excited to have this event, and to start it out, my name is John Griffin, and I am the Assistant Director for Admissions and Student Affairs here at the School of Marine Science. And I'm excited for a lot of reasons. The first is that this is our very first informational webinar about the school and about our graduate program and VIMS. And so I can't wait to tell everybody here in the audience about what's going on. And then also to let you all know is that you have a great panel that's going to be coming to you later tonight to talk to you a bit about their experience here at VIMS and in their whole journey as a marine scientist. So I think you'll all get a lot from it, and it'll be really informative in a whole host of different ways. So as I said, we have a great panel coming to you today. I'll be here, I'll be your host and moderator, but we'll also be joined tonight by Dr. Elixabeth Canuel. Dr. Canuel is a VIMS Chancellor Professor in our Department of Physical Sciences, and Liz's research focuses on marine organic geochemistry and chemical oceanography. We're also going to be joined tonight by Serina Wittyngham, who is currently a VIMS PhD student in our Department of Biological Sciences. Serina right now is studying how environmental stress affects plant responses to herbivores. And then finally, Dr. Vaskar Nepal will be joining us. Vaskar is a current VIMS postdoctoral research associate. But Vaskar also graduated from VIMS with his PhD here this year, and we're very excited for him to be joining us again. Vaskar graduated from our Department of Fisheries Science, where he studied blue catfish in the Chesapeake Bay and the mechanics of their range expansion. So I'll let them do a lot better job of explaining what their research interests are later on in the session. But before we get to that, I'll keep talking for a little bit just to give you some more insight into who we are as a School of Marine Science, what we offer, and just details in general that I can address. The first is that as the School of Marine Science, we are one of William & Mary's 5 graduate schools. William & Mary is a globally recognized university, and it allows us access to this much greater community in which we can have conversations and professionally develop and have a greater impact in the world with. Here at the school, first, William & Mary is located in Williamsburg, Virginia, and we at the School of Marine Science are located in Gloucester Point, Virginia, at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. Gloucester Point is about 30 minutes away driving from main campus Williamsburg. However, our location allows us to be directly on the York River, which is perfect for marine scientists because it means we have immediate access to the beach, the water, all of our aquaculture facilities, our boat basin, and just that lifestyle that marine scientists really appreciate. Here at the School of Marine Science, we offer a Master of Arts, a Master of Science, and a PhD in Marine Science. Our Master of Science and our PhD are our typical research programs where you will be entering into the lab of your faculty advisor, and you'll be helping them with their research, and you'll be working on your own thesis or dissertation. Our Master of Arts is our newest degree, and it's our professional degree. Our Master of Arts is based on providing students with the comprehensive coursework, but also a lot more interdisciplinary focus, as well as an internship and capstone project to graduate. And so this program is really designed for students who are wanting to graduate and go into fields that are not being a professor or being a research scientist, but instead wanting to be in public policy, in business, in outreach and education. This is the degree that's perfect for you all. And hopefully by the end, we'll have talked a lot more about these different tracks. Here at VIMS, we also have 4 different academic departments. We have aquatic health sciences, biological sciences, fishery science, and physical sciences. And this diversity of academic focus has allowed the research that comes out of VIMS to be expansive, from inland watersheds all the way to the open ocean. However, due to our location and our presence in Virginia and the Commonwealth, we have an expertise in coastal and estuary science in the Chesapeake Bay. However, that expertise has not prevented us from sending yearly expeditions to the Antarctic to study the coastal and ocean environments there, or from traveling across the globe to help multiple nations or across the United States and focus on research that really has that broad impact. One of the big reasons that we designed this series of webinars that you will see throughout this fall is to really demystify some of the ideas that come into play when students are thinking about applying to marine science graduate programs. In my role and as faculty and students, we hear all sorts of things from applicants for why they might not be able to apply or pursue this dream of theirs. And so one thing we're wanting to do in this session is to really talk to you all about that, yes, you can pursue your marine science interest and love. And one of the big things I hear in my role as overseeing admissions is that prospective students will come up to me and say, I can't apply to graduate school in marine science because I did not pursue the correct major while I was an undergrad. And I'm here to say that that's not true, most likely. And to prove that, I went back through 3 years worth of admitted student data to figure out exactly what majors our admitted students had pursued in their undergraduate. And what I found is that, yes, we do have a lot of marine biology, marine science, and oceanography majors in our admitted students, but we also have equal amounts of just biology graduates, environmental science, and all of those things in between geology, earth and oceanographic sciences. We have even some more wild ones like environmental toxicology, government, human ecology, small vessel operations, physics. So really there's very few majors in the sciences that will prohibit you from entering into the field of marine science. If you studied science and have the background and the interest and the drive, you can come to a marine science program here at VIMS or wherever and be highly successful. And also marine science, as you can tell from our departments, is very interdisciplinary. Just because you studied one thing doesn't mean that that's what you always have to be focusing on. You can work with others and collaborate in a host of different ways to really have an impactful legacy on the marine science field. The next thing I hear from applicants is that they did not pursue a degree in the right location to get into a school of marine science. They think that because they didn't go to undergraduate in California or in Florida, that they cannot get into marine science. But that's not true as well. We accept students from all across the US and from international as well. In our last 3 years of admitted student data, here are all the points of where students have come to us from. And as you can see, yes, we cover the coasts, the East Coast, the West Coast, the Gulf Coast, Puerto Rico, China, but we also have plenty of landlocked states as well. Your Iowa, your Illinois, your Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And if I were to look back farther, I would see plenty of data from students coming from all over. So just because you didn't pursue your degree at an ocean and nearby an ocean does not mean that you won't be a successful marine scientist. So please don't let that be prohibitive for you. I'd also be remiss right now to not talk a little bit about what an application into graduate school might look like. And I can only speak about what the graduate application here at VIMS does look like, and I can't talk about what other applications look like. But here, our application is open right now and we'll close it on January 6th. All other applications to different programs, wherever you're looking, will have different close dates. So please make sure that you're aware of when that application closed and make sure all of those components are submitted and accounted for, because that can be really prohibitive of your application. Application components that we require is that by the time of your enrollment here, you have to have completed your bachelor's degree from an accredited institution. And at the time of submitting your application, we need to have a transcript from you that shows the coursework that you've completed up to this point. If you're an international applicant, we'll need a TOEFL or IELTS score. From everybody, we'll need either a resume or a curriculum vitae. We also need an objective statement. Our programs have different objective statements, and you can find those on our website or even on the application itself. So make sure as you're progressing, you know which program you're applying for and know the objective statement that you're writing for, and don't complete an objective statement for a different program, because we have those questions intentionally laid out for you and want to know that specific information for the program. We also need 3 letters of recommendation. So that can come from your faculty advisors, from professional mentors, anybody who can speak well about your science and professional preparation for advanced coursework in the sciences or marine science. And then finally, there's an application fee of $54. However, please take a look at our website and the application itself, because we have a list of potential ways that you can request a fee waiver. And if you meet any of those stipulations, put in that request. We would love to review it and hopefully provide you with that fee waiver, because we would love to have you in that way. And then finally, after January 6th, on about January 7th or January 8th, I and the admissions committee will begin review of applications for further review. And then by about April 15th, we hope to have sent out all notifications of our final decisions for admissions. So please take a look at that website right there at the link. That provides you with all of the information that you'll need to complete an application, as well as the portal to get to the application. Finally, before I get over to our panelists, I just want another big topic to be covered, is that a lot of prospective students or people who are interested in marine science think that a career in marine science is just being on a boat forever, or being in the lab, or being in the field. And because of that, they remove themselves from pursuing that dream. But I'm here to tell you that marine science is a huge field. And you can see from the busyness of this PowerPoint slide that just trying to quantify or qualify where you can go with a marine science degree is really hard because there's so many different ways. Just from the photo here, you can see that you can be in a boat in the lab or handling fish directly, but you can also be spending your time in your career educating others, working with kids, working with outreach, or you can be doing policy work. If you're very interested in working on Capitol Hill or in your government, marine science is a great way to get into those ways, get into those channels. What we've found from our graduates, and this is just a very short list, but our graduates are able to successfully go into careers in colleges and universities. They can be a research or teaching professor. They can be a lab manager, a research scientist in a lab or center or department at a university. You can also go into that national government. Like I said, you can work at NOAA, the National Science Foundation, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, or you can even be a policy advisor for an acting senator. We've seen that, and it's phenomenal to see. If you want to go into state and local government, you can be working for your State Department of Fish and Game, or your State Department of Environmental Quality, or your Department of Natural Resources. Or if you're on a coastal state, you can work for the Marine Resource Commission. All of those are available with a degree in marine science. As I said, you can also go into education and outreach. You can be a K-12 teacher, an education coordinator at aquariums, zoos, or museums. You can be a museum curator, or you can work in environmental outreach and work directly with constituents or with academics. You can also be a communications consultant. If you're really interested in communicating science to society, this is a great way to do it. There's also for-profit industries like consulting firms, natural resource management, or even law firms. Great environmental law lawyers come with a marine science background. And then in the not-for-profit world, you can go to the Nature Conservancy, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, or local wetland boards, just to name a few. So with that, I just covered a little bit of the basics, but now I'm going to welcome our first panelist up to talk to you all and present a little bit more information about their story. And you'll hear from me all throughout the rest of it, but hopefully that was informative. And so for now, I would like to invite Serina Wittyngham to come to center screen and join me. And Serina, as I said, is a current VIMS PhD student. And right now she's going to give you all a little bit of a talk about what it's like to have walked in her shoes and what she does now. So Serina, the floor is yours.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Serina Wittyngham. I'm starting the 4th year of my PhD at VIMS. And happy to share with you all some of my journey and how I got here today. So I grew up in a very small town in Northern California, about 5 hours from the coast. I originally thought about marine science because I really wanted to be a killer whale trainer. I decided that that was the career for me. very quickly, that transitioned to something that just had to do with the ocean. I was fascinated by it and excited to pursue it. And so as I went through high school, I was still nowhere near a coast, but I started Googling colleges that offered marine biology undergraduate degrees. And I stumbled upon Florida International University, which is in Miami. So I moved across the country as soon as I graduated high school, and started this degree in marine biology. And as what John just shared with everybody, it should be obvious by now that the term marine science or marine biology is really all encompassing, and it covers a whole variety of different fields and research and careers. So I entered into undergrad for this degree. I really had no idea what it meant, but I was excited to figure it out and extra excited to be near an ocean. And from there, I was taking some of my undergraduate classes, and my ecology professor at the time was someone that I was really excited by. His research seemed great, and overall, he was just a really enthusiastic and exciting educator. And so I took a risk and I emailed him and said, if you have anything that I can possibly do in your lab, please let me do it. And one thing led to another, and I was able to start working in his lab as a volunteer at first, and that ultimately transitioned into a paid position. And I was working for a PhD student at the time, and we started working with jellyfish, and I soon realized that that was not something I was interested in. And fortunately, she also was looking at plants. So at the time, it was seagrasses, underwater plants, and I was really excited about aquatic botany. And from there, I was able to work in that lab for about 3 years of my undergraduate career. And when I finished undergrad, I was really excited about grad school at the time. I was like, yes, I'm going to go get a master's degree. This is what's going to happen. Unfortunately, I applied to 4 different locations and I didn't get in anywhere. And at the time, that was, of course, devastating. But I think if you take anything away from the story that I'm sharing with you today, I hope it's that you know that your path doesn't have to be linear. You can try and not get in, and it can ultimately be the best thing that ever happened. So I didn't get into grad school. I was totally devastated. I ended up working in the lab a little bit more. I served tables. I worked at a grocery store. I did all sorts of odds and end jobs trying to make ends meet at the time, and searching through Google relentlessly, and some people I'd already met trying to find a job. And I ultimately landed at Mote Marine Lab in Sarasota, Florida, where I worked briefly. And then I met a different advisor and worked a different job and bounced from job to job until several years later, I decided it was time to try grad school again. So I applied and I got in for a master's program at San Francisco State University. So I moved back to California and pursued my master's degree, which turned out to be a wonderful experience. And the time that I entered was the time that I needed to be there. And again, if there's one thing you take away, it's seize your opportunities when they present themselves, and definitely don't be down on yourself if what you thought was supposed to happen didn't happen right away. So after I finished my master's degree, I took another year or 2 off trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up and if a PhD was for me. I had ultimately been sifting through the VIMS website, looking at faculty members, and I stumbled on Dr. David Johnson, who is now my PhD advisor. And so I've been here for 4 years. I really have loved every second of my experience at VIMS. I'll be here a bit longer as I continue to work on my dissertation, but I'm happy to answer any questions after this is over and we meet the rest of our panelists. And of course, I'm thankful that you all are here. So thanks, John.
Thank you, Serina. I love that story. I'm glad you're here. So thank you, Serina, for sharing. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Vaskar Nepal to come up to the screen and to share his story with us. Remember, everybody, Vaskar, he'll talk more about his story, but he graduated from VIMS with his PhD this year. Vaskar, the screen's yours.
All right. I'll just start by saying that I'm a freshly minted postdoc here. And it still feels weird to be called Dr. Vaskar Nepal. I'm like, who is this guy they are talking about? But anyway, my name is Vaskar Nepal. And as you can probably guess from my name, I am from Nepal, which many of you probably know is a landlocked country. So it does not have oceans. I did not grow up, dreaming about wrestling sharks or whatever. I did not do that. At heart, I'm still a mountain lover, but here I am. So my interest has always been in ecology, mostly in aquatic ecology. So I came here to the United States about 10 years ago as a transfer undergraduate student. I was in Illinois, where I got my undergraduate degree and my master's degrees. When I was as I was an undergraduate student at Eastern Illinois University, I was just looking for jobs, and the professor that happened to have some funds available was a fisheries professor, and that's what I did. Turns out I actually enjoyed working with fishes. So over the next 3 or 4 years, I worked with him in the lab, and I really enjoyed it. I thought this I really like. I'm going to make a career out of it. I could do this. So as I was looking for my for colleges, universities for my PhD degree, I came across an advertisement from Dr. Mary Fabrizio, who is a professor here at VIMS. I saw that, and I somehow disregarded it because marine science was not a big thing for me. Then my then advisor also forwarded it to me and said, "You should do this." So I did, and here I am. So really, what I'm trying to say here is that the reason I'm here is mainly because of my advisor. And turns out marine science is a huge field, and I'm here mostly for the fishes. But so don't be alarmed or whatever if you do not feel like marine science is for you. If you are interested in fishes, do it. If you are interested in toxicology, do it. But I want to emphasize here that you will hear from a lot of people that they are here at VIMS. A lot of students are here at VIMS because of their advisors, because we have fantastic professors, advisors here. So I finished my PhD degree this summer, and here I am staying here for maybe another 2 years or so, now as a postdoc. And all of this is to emphasize that I really love it here. That's why I decided to stay here for another 2 years. So yeah, that's what I have. Yeah.
Thank you, Vaskar. You're not going to talk about that you got to have your trip back to Nepal while you were here at VIMS in your last year?
Sure. So
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah. As I was saying earlier, at heart, I'm still a mountain lover. I grew up, surrounded by mountains. So I really wanted to work with fishes, freshwater fishes. There are some opportunities here, but last year, for example, we got some funds together, and we went back to Nepal. A few of us from the United States collaborated with a few folks from Nepal and conducted some research there. So even though this institution is a marine science institute, there are opportunities for you to work outside of typical marine science realm. So I was able to use that opportunity to work in freshwater environments in Nepal. So, and there are other people that do similar sorts of things. So do not be hesitant to be here, even if you feel like the whole marine science thing is not for you. If you are interested in something, there might be ways to make it happen, especially if you have a really good advisor, which I was lucky to have, and you can have too.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Vaskar. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Elixabeth Canuel to come up to screen. Remember, everybody, that she's a current VIMS Chancellor Professor, and I'm very excited to hear about her journey here in marine science. So, Liz, all yours.
Thanks. So, hi, everyone. I'm Liz Canuel, and as John just mentioned, I'm a professor in the Department of Physical Sciences at VIMS, and my area of expertise is chemical oceanography. I want to just begin by echoing some of the same points that Serina and Vaskar just made. So the first thing relates to trying new things, and you can never predict where an open door will take you. So when that door opens to you, take the opportunity. Secondly, they both touched on the idea of marine sciences as a community and the importance of the people that you meet and the relationships that you make. In some ways, the people are part of the journey. It's not all about the science. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that pursuing a graduate degree in marine science is very exciting and rewarding and something I encourage you to do, but it shouldn't be your end game. I'm reminded of the words of my former advisor, Chris Martins, who said, "A graduate degree is your ticket. It's the start to endless possibilities." So John asked me to tell you a little bit about my journey, and I'm going to start with the end of my undergraduate program because this is probably where many of you are at right now. I went to a small college in Massachusetts and I majored in chemistry. And you may remember from the pie chart that John just showed you that chemistry was a very small piece of the pie. But nonetheless, here I am in oceanography. When I graduated from college, I had never taken a course in oceanography, and I had no idea of how chemistry applied to the oceans. The only thing that I knew was that I wanted to do, I wanted a career that would involve research. So fresh out of college, I applied for jobs as a lab tech, and I actually interviewed for 3 very different positions. So the first one was as a food chemist at Ocean Spray, you know, the company that makes cranberry juice. The second was an R&D position at Rayovac, a company that makes batteries. And the third was a position in the Department of Chemistry and Geochemistry at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. So no surprises. I think you know which one I chose. I ended up working at the Oceanographic Institution for several years, but it was relatively maybe 2 years into the position. I was out at sea in the North Pacific Ocean, you know, just a lovely evening, lots of stars. And I just decided, you know, I just fell in love with oceanography and decided I wanted to be a chemical oceanographer. So eventually I went to grad school and did my PhD at UNC in Chapel Hill. And then I did a postdoc at the US Geological Survey out in California. And then I joined the faculty here at VIMS about 26 years ago. So I've now been here for quite a long time. And in some ways you may think, well, that's not very much of a journey, but at the same time, my 26 years here have been filled with many journeys. I spent some time at the National Science Foundation as a program director. I have worked and have students and colleagues from all over the world. I've worked on a variety of really interesting projects, everything from projects related to climate change and coastal ecosystems to food webs and contaminants. And I even had a project studying whether algae could be used as biofuels. And along the way, I've also had a number of grad students who I stay in contact with. Many of them have gone on to positions at other universities and academic institutions, but some are at federal agencies, so places like NOAA and the US Geological Survey, and then others are in the private sector at environmental consulting companies. In fact, one of my former students is actually president of her own environmental consulting company. So I just want to end with a couple of takeaways before we move into the Q&A session. So first is to not to underestimate the power of serendipity. It's important to plan, but at the same time, I would have never discovered the field of chemical oceanography if I hadn't taken a chance and taken the position at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. That totally was a game changer, so to speak. And secondly, I hope you've seen from our presentations that marine sciences is really a very broad field. It involves different disciplines, different combinations of disciplines, and different research approaches. There's really no one size fits all in marine science, and there's just lots of different opportunities and different career paths. So thank you for being with us tonight, and we can, we'll return things to John for the next step.
Thank you so much, Liz. I really appreciate it. And now I want to invite Serina and Vaskar to unmute and come back live with us to answer any questions. We see that there's already a fair number coming in, so we really appreciate that, and it's really exciting. But please take this time to ask the questions that really interest you. I think I'm going to lead off. There's a few already in both the chat and the Q&A talking about more questions about like what to study and requirements for kind of coming in. So I just want to say that you do not need to have been a science major. As we've said, we have government majors who we've accepted, but having a background of academics in the sciences is important because you will need to be completing coursework, which I'm sure Serina and Vaskar could talk a little bit about, and Liz, since you assign it, but talk about the coursework that is expected of students. And it really does benefit our students to have some level of background in the chemistries, in the biologies, in the mathematics to make sure that you can be successful as you come forward. But a marketing degree would be awesome. We just need to see if you also have any scientific courses as well that could help you go forward, Miguel. So thank you for your question. I'd love to talk more. Please contact me. A few other things, maybe Vaskar, Serina, or Liz, you could answer is some, Mara asks, how much prior lab experience do students entering the Master of Science or the PhD program typically have?
Yeah, it's quite variable, like everything else we're saying. So I've had students who, maybe their main lab experiences have been through courses that they took, chemistry or biology labs. I would say a lot of our students have some research experience, so they might have participated in the research experience for undergraduate program. Sometimes they've done a volunteer stint or an internship in a lab. Sometimes they've been employed in a lab setting for some amount of time. So there's not, again, it's not a one size fits all type thing.
Yeah, I think I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for the other VIMS grad students, but I was fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to volunteer in a lab and then ultimately work. And I think everyone here, as well as VIMS admissions, recognizes that opportunity may not be available to everyone, and that's okay. So it is dependent on what's available to you. I will say one of my big takeaways from undergrad is don't be afraid of your professors. So if you're still in undergrad and you have the opportunity to talk to a professor that you're really excited about, do it. They are just as excited to talk to you and are even more excited if you ask them what they study. Scientists love to talk about what they study. So I encourage you to not be afraid of your professors. They can help.
Yeah, I agree. I have really not found anybody that has had like no experience prior to coming here. But given I say that, I think the admissions committee and the reviewers realize that people have different circumstances. And for example, an incoming master's student may not have as much experience as an incoming PhD student. So people already realize that. But I will also add that if you have any choice at all, you should get some experience, because that will not only let you know whether you want to be in this field, but also when you apply for it, your application will look stronger. So if you can change, and if you can get more experience, you should definitely do that.
Yeah. And I would say for everybody who's interested, our final session, the final webinar that we're hosting on November 17th is all about the ins and outs of our application process. So I'll have some more details about what our application looked like, but we'll also have members of our admissions committee present and other faculty who can talk a little bit more about how they review students and how they make contact with students and really what makes strong applications. Whether it's the coursework or the extracurriculars or anything like that. And so that'll be a really great session to answer a lot of these questions. So please make sure you stay tuned. And there's nothing better than heading into Thanksgiving break with a long conversation about graduate applications. Another great question we have, and I can direct this towards Serina or Vaskar, or what kind of student organizations or activities are there here at VIMS? Scuba, sailing, etc.?
Sure. We have actually, for an institution of the size that we are, we have 89 or 90 students, something like that, right? So we are a pretty small institution in terms of student body, but we definitely punch above our weight because there are just so many clubs, so many activities, professional development opportunities. Sail and paddle club, we have just so many different kinds of clubs, intramural activities, games. We have all kinds of things. I do not know about scuba diving, but for some of these things where you do not have clubs, maybe there are definitely groups of people that are interested in doing it, and they just form a group and then they go out and do it. That's how I've usually seen it happen.
Yeah, I agree with everything Vaskar said. There's a ton of opportunities to be involved, both professionally and personally. Everything from plant propagule trades to, hangouts at the beach to all sorts of things. There's a ton of activities that you can be a part of. So, and it, like Vaskar said, if we don't have it, you can make it.
And I'd also say one of the good things about being connected with William & Mary and their other graduate schools and their undergraduate program is that our students have access to everything that William & Mary provides. So if our students are more interested in hanging out with law students or business students or education students, there's clubs and organizations that they can get connected with that way, as well as all the other big events that happen on the William & Mary campus. So we have another question directed once again more towards Serina or Vaskar, but I think Liz, you could be able to jump in for the other side of it. What has the experience been like for finding an advisor at VIMS or even from your master's degree? And maybe Liz, the opposite side of as the advisor, what has been like those initiations been like, or how have you searched for students?
Yeah, so I can jump in on that. So both of my master's advisor and my current PhD advisor are people that I did not know before I went to grad school. I was interested at the time when I went to my master's, I was interested in seagrasses. So I hit my good friend Google and was literally Googling seagrass scientists. And I knew I kind of wanted to end up back on the West Coast, and that's how it happened. And I sent an initial email. I sent a second initial email just to check up again, and made contact. And that happened actually for both stages of my career so far. I will say, Vaskar mentioned it earlier, finding an advisor is so important, and finding one that not only aligns with your research interests, but that you also get along with. So, when you're looking for an advisor, my PhD advisor now says that it's an interview on both sides. So they're interviewing you, yes, but you also should make sure that you get along with them, that you enjoy the lab space. Grad school can be all consuming. And so you spend a lot of your personal and professional time with your lab group. And so making sure you find an advisor that suits what you're looking for is also really important. And of course, after this, if anyone has further follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer them later on as well.
I agree with Serina completely. So, as I said before, I came here because of my advisor. If she was in a freshwater institution, maybe I would have ended up there, but finding a really, really good advisor is really important, really important. And as Serina said, it not only from the academic perspective, but also from the emotional perspective, especially if you are coming in as a PhD student. It takes a long time, and you are going to struggle. So the one advice that I will probably have for incoming students of any kind is to be mentally prepared for things will fail. Animals will die, things will break, experiments will fail. That's just part of what it is. But just be prepared, and try your best to find an advisor that you think you will be able to work with over the next 2, 4, 5, 6 years. That is just super important. And talk with people in whoever you are going to whoever your next advisor is going to be. Talk to people in their labs, the students. Talk with them to see whether you see any bad signs. So yeah, I encourage people to do that.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just jump in briefly. So the one thing to think about is applying to grad school is a little bit different than applying to an undergrad, because students are supported by an advisor's research program, and that means supported in every way. Like their project may fall under the umbrella of that project. Resources from the advisor's program will support the student. The advisor will help the student network in the larger community, and be a colleague to the student as well. So it's really important to reach out to people whose work is of interest to you, and just start maybe with some emails. Like Serina mentioned, she found people's names by Googling. You can ask a professor if there's an area that you're particularly interested in, but I would try to reach out to people. The first outreach can be just to see whether they're taking a student, and maybe to set up a phone call or Zoom call to find out more about their research program. Those types of interactions are really important, because you want an advisor who's going to be supportive of your research, is also going to be able to advocate for you, and ideally it's a really important relationship. So somebody that you'll want to work with, not only during your graduate degree, but someone you would maintain a relationship with beyond your graduate degree.
Perfect. Thank you all. We have another question that I think pairs really well in terms of our Master of Science and our PhD relationship with their advisors, and that's about the financial situation. So the question is, like, what does the financial situation look like for a master's student? Is there a cost of tuition? Are they paid half-time or other? So I was wondering if, though you both were PhD, you pursued a master at one point. So I'm wondering if you all could talk about kind of how you were financially supported and what ways you were financially supported, both at your previous institution as well as now. And then maybe Liz, you can talk about what ways you have financially supported or had students be financially supported during your time.
I'll jump in, yeah. So I had two very different situations between my master's and my PhD as far as funding is concerned. So San Francisco State University, where I did my master's, is not required to pay their students. In fact, the majority of the students that go there are not paid a stipend and are responsible for coming up with their own tuition. I refused that model, and I was told by my undergraduate advisor at the time to never go anywhere that would not pay me at least something. And so fortunately, the advisor I did my master's with had funding at the time, and I had kind of brazenly told her that that was a requirement of mine. And so she was able to pay my stipend. Of course, master's and PhD salaries are very modest stipends, but they are plenty to live on. I have a roof over my head and I am able to eat, so everything is fine there. And then as far as my PhD is concerned, VIMS operates on a very different playing field as where I did my master's, where they require that their students are supported, both for tuition as well as a stipend. So for me personally, the first 2 years of my tuition and stipend were covered by our academic studies department at VIMS. Typically, at least the first year is covered for most students, if not all of them, by academic studies. As far as my remaining years, it's a mixture of funds that I have acquired myself through grant proposals, as well as through funds that my advisor has come up with. Again, one of the very first conversations I had with my advisor before he became my advisor was, how are we going to fund me? And that is an okay question to ask. Worrying and having anxiety about where your money is coming from is not something that you should have on top of a rigorous graduate program. And so having those conversations early with your advisor, with your department, with whoever will talk to you about it is really important. And I highly encourage it. It sounds like there's a stigma around it, but there shouldn't be. You should be able to talk about what you need.
I agree with Serina on that. I definitely think that when you are getting your master's degree or PhD degree, you are about to be an expert in the field. So you should be good. They should pay you for it, you know? So I really think that if you are getting into grad school, I think you should find a way for them to pay you. At VIMS, I have yet to hear of any student that was that had to find their own funding from one way or another. The advisors and the institution sort of take care of you in a sense, meaning that they always find a way to fund you. You don't have to pay your tuition or your stipend. They will find a way. You will probably have to work with them to find that, but you will not be paying your own tuition or stipend.
Yeah, and I'll just add a couple of things just to broaden the landscape. So students, all students at VIMS are supported, but the way they're supported can take different forms, and even can take different forms over the course of their degree program. So typically, incoming students are supported by the academic studies department for 1 or 2 years, depending on if they're master's or PhD students. And then I would say most students end up being graduate research assistants, where they basically are supported on the research grants of their advisors. But I've also had a number of students who've been able to get some funding on their own, which is an excellent professional development opportunity. So the National Science Foundation and various federal agencies like NOAA and NASA, Department of Energy, all offer graduate fellowship programs. They're pretty competitive, but I always encourage my students to try for them. And then the other way we often support students is as teaching assistants. So we have an undergraduate minor in marine science, and some of our students help out with those courses and are supported in that way. They might teach for a semester or even a couple of semesters. And then we also have TAs for our incoming graduate student courses. So there's a few different cards to play in terms of the funding landscape.
Yeah, and I would reiterate that students usually receive funding one way or another, either through internal institutional funds, like a fellowship, or through a teaching assistantship, and they'll work on the William & Mary campus to instruct undergrads, or on the VIMS campus being a teaching assistant for graduate students. But also a lot of our students will go out and find their own fellowships and research grants. I know, Vaskar, you received a Sea grant. graduate research fellowship. Serina, did you as well? Or okay. So our students are usually fairly competitive as well on local and national grants to help provide funding for themselves and make sure that their cost of pursuing education are reduced. And that's for the Master of Science and for the PhD. Our Master of Arts is a little bit different in that it's a tuition-based model. So the student would be expected to pay tuition. However, there are ways that we are offsetting those costs, similarly with teaching assistantships or with internships here on campus or in institutions that we have partnerships with. So if there's questions about finances, once again, that's a great question to bring to your faculty advisor of interest or to come to myself or the program director for the MA program to have that conversation about what your particular situation is like. Liz, I believe we have a question that's your wheelhouse in the chat. Kate says that they're interested in using stable isotope analysis technique to help answer ecology-based questions related to baleen wells or large migratory pelagics. Is that a research area that you cover?
Sort of. I mean, I definitely I use stable isotope measurements in my research program, and we have an isotope ratio mass spectrometer as part of our facilities at VIMS. I haven't studied whales and baleen, but I have used stable isotopes in other projects looking at food webs and food sources for organisms in the marine environment. So definitely that type of opportunity would be available.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Les. Chloe asks, is there a particular focus within marine science that is growing or expanding the most currently?
I don't know if I have the answer, but I think one area of marine science that is really growing is sort of the interaction between the natural and the social sciences. So VIMS, we do work all over the world, and we do everything from seagrass and coastal wetland work to blue water oceanography in the Southern Ocean. But I think one of our strengths is really the working in coastal environments, and coastal environments are places where the ocean touches people and where people touch the ocean. And a lot of the challenges we have in environmental science, the solutions are not entirely based in the sciences. They also require work in issues of policy and behavior and economics and just a lot of different social science aspects. So I think that melding of the social and natural sciences is really a growth area and a place of a lot of opportunity right now.
I agree with that. I think applied science is definitely becoming bigger. So that idea of experimentation and interpreting your results all the way to how it affects the people around you and the communities that are surrounding whatever ecosystem you're working in, I think is really important. And I think we're working in that direction to have more outreach and community-based science in addition to pure empirical research.
I was going to say, marine policy and marine economics, that sort of thing, but that's what Liz was talking about. So really, that's I think where a lot of expansion is happening, and it's really important. I'll also emphasize, and Serina sort of talked about this a little bit, is that as scientists, increasingly it is becoming more and more important to be sort of experts in communication, science communication as well. So I think that is a key factor where a lot of expansion is happening. That also reminds me that one of the tips that I might have for students, incoming students or students that are already in getting their master's or PhD degrees, trying to get some experience in something outside of your own research field. So maybe things like graphic design or communication, anything like that. Those would actually come in really handy. Even music can come in handy. So try to get exposure and experience in something that is completely unrelated to your research. That will help not only with your career, but also with keeping yourself sane during troubling times when you are in graduate school.
That's fair. I was also just going to add, I think another really big emerging theme too is thinking about global change ecology and thinking about how climate change, sea level rise, temperature increases, ocean acidification, all of the things related to global change, how those are impacting ecosystems and coastal communities, I think is another large emerging theme.
Thank you. We only have time for one more question, so I'm sorry for everybody who I wasn't able to get to, but I want to take just the last minute to answer. I'm so sorry if I really butcher your name, but Sorilis Ruiz Escobar. They asked how diverse is the student body and faculty here at VIMS, and does VIMS have any initiatives or such to increase diversity and inclusion at our school? Based on our current student body, we're about 12 to 15% with students who would identify as either Black, African-American, Latinx, or as a student of color. Unfortunately, our faculty, or none of our faculty, would identify as a faculty of color or Black, African-American, or Latinx. That is something that we're working on in increasing our searchability to bring in and have that diversity present in our faculty. But as for initiatives, VIMS is doing really well for our initiatives and trying to build forward and make a lot of progress. We have what we call our dive-in committee, which is focused on diversity and inclusion. And they have a master plan that's been institutionally worked over recently for increasing diversity of our hiring practices for our faculty and staff, as well as for our recruitment methods for students and for prospective students. And also our K through 12 initiatives in the local Commonwealth have been really targeted towards providing all of the communities of color and our Black and Latinx, African-American communities in the Commonwealth with more access to marine science than ever before. So we do have a lot of initiatives going through, and I'd be happy to speak more about that later on, or provide you with contact to our diving committee, and we'd love to have that. But it's now 8 o'clock, so I just want to end by finally letting everybody know, if you enjoyed what you saw tonight, our website is right there up on the screen. You can find us easily online. Or if you have more questions or want to have that communication, please email either admissions@vims.edu with questions about admissions in the application, or email me directly at jmgriffin@vims.edu. I'm happy to talk and answer questions that I can. And I know that our panelists would agree, and they're willing to help answer more questions if you have them. So please send them my way, and I can be a great mediator for that. You can also find us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at VIMS_news, or you can find the School of Marine Science on Twitter at VIMS_grad_dean. Or we're on Facebook at Facebook VIMS. Also, if you're really passionate now about VIMS, you can sign up for our e-Tidings newsletter. And this will come out monthly to let you know about all of the fun programs that are happening at VIMS, all of our after hours and seminars. And there's ways to access it here. So please make sure you get connected that way. And then finally, I hope you all really enjoyed the session tonight. I'm really sorry that we couldn't get to all your questions, but feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer and continue that. Or you can join us for the next 3 weeks with new panels of faculty and staff. And next week, we'll be talking about why VIMS is a leader in marine science. So you'll get to hear more about who we are and what we do and the impact that we make, as well as on November 12th, you'll be able to explore the new professional MA degree with the program director and a few alumni who have agreed to take on students in that field. And then finally, part 4, heading into the Thanksgiving break, we're going to have a deep dive into what the VIMS application looks like, as well as advice that current faculty and our admissions committee have for creating a really strong application and what it is that they're looking for in their process. So I hope you all can join us later on. We really appreciate you taking time during your evening to join us. And also my panelists, You all were wonderful. Thank you for sharing your journey and your insight. We really appreciate it. And with that, I hope everybody has a good night and that you all stay safe and well during this time. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you all again in a week. Thank you, everybody.